Assalamu alaikum. Can everyone hear me?
Walaikum assalam, Sister Mariam. Yes, we can hear you. Alhamdulillah.
Okay. We'll start in about 5
We're
minutes.
gonna start 8:01. We normally start the recording.
Okay. It says that only meeting organizers and presenters can share. I'm not able to share my presentation.
You can't share your presentation?
No.
Okay, let me check what's going on with RIM. Okay, yeah.
Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam. I'm not able to share my presentation.
Yeah, I'll just make you a presenter. 1 minute. Yeah.
where I can share. Can everyone see the screen?
Yes. I'm just gonna start the recording now, yeah?
Yeah. Right, yeah, you can start now. Okay. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Today I'm going to be doing Hadith 14 and 22 and I'll explain them, and at the end I'll take questions after I've done both Hadiths. So from Hadith 14, I'm going to read the Arabic and then the translation. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. عن ابن مسعود رضي الله عنه قال قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم لا يجل دم امرئ مسلم إلا بإحدى ثلاث: الثيب الزاني والنفس بالنفس والتارك لدينه المفارق بالجماعة. رواه البخاري ومسلم. The blood of a man who is Muslim is not lawful, cannot be lawfully, should save if he belongs to one of three classes: a married man who is an adulterer, life for life; one who is a deserter of his religion, abandoning the community. Reported by Al-Bukhari and Muslim. So this is basically saying that someone that is married, so if you're married and that person is cheating on you with someone, that is basically an adulterer. So that is someone that in Islam that is not acceptable. And even in a lot of Shia countries in where it happens, where they also get stoned for being an adulterer as well in certain Muslim countries. And one who is a deserter of his religion, so that means if you're abandoning your religion and you're abandoning your whole community and you have different beliefs. So a person can be killed for many different reasons. For example, revenge. So everyone has nowadays like your revenge, or you're like jealous of someone, or they have something that you really want in your life and you're thinking, I wish I had that, and you don't feel complete because you don't have that they have, and it makes you want to have that even more. So one of the things that used to happen was there used to be revenge on killing newborn babies because they were ashamed. So this mainly happened for uh, female babies as well. So they wanted to kill newborn baby girls because it was considered a shame. It's considered shameful to have females. That's how they used to see it. And it used to be better to have male babies. So that's how it used to be back then. And when Islam arrived, it stressed on the value and importance of human life. So how much is it important to embrace human life, and how much that shows that Allah even says that how much women are loved, and that Jannah is on a woman's feet as well. It's on women's feet. So it shows how valuable women are in Islam. But back then, it wasn't exactly as valued because they wanted to kill newborn babies because they were ashamed of females or what females could do. When nowadays, where in Islam, that Allah says that the females are more uh, loved than the males. So when it arrived, it stressed on the value and importance of human life, like I said, and a life must not be threatened unless it is lawful. And a serious violation of the Sharia had occurred, and Islam made it clear that taking of a human life is the responsibility of the highest authority, the judge. So only a judge could make that decision, how they used to have back in the Sharia law, which they still have in Muslim countries. And it's to prevent this practice from being abused for personal interests. So some people would take that into account and would use it as their own personal interest of what they wanted to have, basically. So they were like, you know what, we don't like we don't like these females, we want them to be killed, we're ashamed of them just for their own like, and just because they wanted to control their daughters and basically say this is what needs to happen. So the family would take control. And in Islam, it's established like rules and regulations for the community that minimize the need to carry out the execution of a man or a woman, as allowed by the three cases by this hadith. So we know that Islam is a peaceful religion, and it has established rules where people respect one another. We live peacefully. Things that people see on the media, they take that into account and think, oh, is this true? Is that true? Or if someone comes up to you, and that's the kind of thing that we can do as Muslims. We can basically show them and how peaceful we are, because if we're going to be violent, or if we're going to do something, then they're going to basically take that into account and think, oh yeah, the media was right, this is how Muslims are like. But we need to show them how peaceful we are and how loving we are, and that's how we should be. So especially when you're in a hijab as well as a female, it's really good to represent yourself, as a, you're a Muslim woman, you're a Muslim girl, and you're walking, and you're basically a walking, talking representation of Islam when you have that hijab on. Even though it's just a fabric on your head, it really it represents how you are, even for males as well, and what they wear and how they see themselves as Muslims. You need to make sure, as whether you're male or female, when you're out there, you're representing yourself, you're representing Islam. So you need to basically show the non-Muslims and everyone around you how you are and how much of a good person you are, and follow the Quran and Sunnah of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam as well. Basically, how he used to live, and how kind he was, how truthful he was. We should be using that in our daily life and making sure we're kind, we're truthful. You know, we're basically making sure we are the best version of ourselves and we have that good character. And a lot of things happen nowadays now in this community you know, where serious violations have happened. For example, that we see zina, right? So that's a really big thing. So zina is basically having intercourse before marriage, and that's seen as a really big sin. And Islam has rules. So in Islam we have rules for Muslim society that regulate these relationships. So these relationships nowadays, it's just seen as like a normal thing. A girl and boy are together, like it's seen as normal. Or if someone's like talking to you, let's say if a Muslim person's talking to you and they've committed that, and people just see it as nowadays like a normal thing. But we have to show that in Islam, and correct those people and tell them that it's wrong. We can't just normalize certain things or pick certain things to believe in Islam. That's not how it works. So it's very difficult for these cases mentioned to occur if there's rules and regulations that are observed. And some people deserting the religion, as it said, as the Muslim community is based on knowledge, where ilm and dawah are continuously being um, disseminated and conveyed, as in people are basically, not following it, or, making certain things up for their own liking as well. But we need to follow everything that is said in the Quran, that's said in the Sunnah. If you're not sure about something, then you should ask someone. Yeah, you shouldn't make things up or give that Islamic knowledge to someone when you're not sure yourself. So make sure that you do that research and you actually check that it's correct. And people are aware of their religious obligations and the minds of society as well. So it's protected, you're basically being manipulated. And these measures have been set up by Islam to minimize the occurrences of these exceptional cases where taking of a human life is even allowed as well. So there are some exceptional cases where during the time of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and later during the era of the rightly guided caliphs. So there were only a few cases where such violations or problems occurred. So what does this hadith tell us? So this hadith should be seen and understood from a positive viewpoint. So it's not legal to kill a Muslim except in one of three cases. And these three cases are exceptional. So it shows that Muslim blood is valued and treasured and is blessed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the last sermon of the Prophet sallallahu wasallam. So during his farewell Hajj, the pilgrimage, which was a few months before he died, sallallahu alaihi wasallam re-emphasized the principle of this hadith, which is the sanctity of a Muslim's blood. So in Islam, we encourage Muslims to avoid any kind of act, so any kind of violence, injustice that would lead to violating this principle. And all this shows just how important it is to not shed the blood of a Muslim. So obviously, none of us are perfect, right? Sometimes we can get angry at our parents, or we say things that, we might regret later that we do not mean. Because in that time when you're really angry, it's where you don't think straight. And when you're angry at someone, or you want to get revenge, or you get jealous of someone, those are the kind of things that go through your head and you don't know what to do about it. So it's kind of like finding a way to kind of thinking about, how can I get away from this situation? Do I just can I just walk away from this situation? What can I think about, like in my head, like mentally, like what can I do to make sure that I don't say anything that's horrible to someone, say angry that's horrible to someone? Because whatever we say, we're basically proving to, the non-Muslims, anyone, that we are violent, or that we are, what they say they are. And the way that media and the way that people now accept certain things from happening. For example, zina, now that's seen as like a normal thing, but that's literally the biggest sin. Or people normalizing, people wearing certain clothes, or like on social media as well, where people are wearing, tighter clothes, or they're wearing, different kind of things, different kind of like outfits nowadays, or they're wearing the hijab, or they're wearing like a crop top or jeans. I don't know if you've seen that as well, or on Instagram, and it's seen as normalized. And the thing is, those young girls in that generation are going to see those women, dressing like that, and they'll think, oh, that's okay to dress like that because they're dressed like that. So that's why for younger people, we need to show them and basically be a role model to them, to show them that that is wrong and we shouldn't be dressed like that. Obviously, you shouldn't judge, everyone has a different environment that they grow up in. Everyone's had different families and different things that we've been a part of. But it's just that thing where you have to be around a good environment and have good friendship, have good people around you to be able to show you, you know, what is right and what is wrong. And in Islam, we should encourage that to any, Muslim sisters and even brothers as well, to anything that, that you see as wrong, that you should speak up about. And it isn't about to not be afraid to say something, because if you do see something wrong, or someone's being violent or something, we shouldn't just walk past it. We should do something about it as Muslims. So what is seen as a punishment? So in Islam, what is seen as a punishment are actually measures put in place to protect the Muslim society and community. So it takes precautions to ensure that these evil acts, the violations of these principles, are minimized. So in Islam, we promote good values, and we encourage marriage, the legal relationship between a man and a woman, because there's no point having, there's this story that I heard where a man and woman were married, and there was this man that committed zina before he had intercourse before marriage. And when he got married the halal way, the person that he was supposed to be, like the one that he did zina with, he couldn't stop thinking about that person while being in marriage. So it's not like Allah is telling you, telling you you can't do this, you can't do this, you can't do that, and you're saying why, because there is a reason for every single thing and why it is a bad thing. For example, zina's haram because once you do it, then you can't forget about that person. The person that you're married with, you're going to remember. If you're a man, you're going to think about that woman that you were with, rather than the woman that you're married to. That's one of the reasons why zina and being mixed, like male and female, why that's haram, why that's sinful. Different things, why we shouldn't wear tight clothes, because it gets a loads of like males stare at you or something, or stare at your body. There's a reason why each thing that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does, and it's not to, you know, put us in, like trap us or anything, it's to protect us. And Allah has specifically said in the Quran how it is important that He protects us and makes sure that, we are covered, we are modest. And it's not like, these points are just being said. There's a reason why it's being said. And in the Quran, it says a reason for each point that I'm saying, or that's been said, that you've heard of as well. So that's why it shows that, as Allah wants us as women to be protected, and there's always a reason why certain things happen. So it gives a place, it gives importance in a caring society. So all of us caring for each other as well. And whether we're rich or poor, or care for each other, we minimize any hatred and conflicts and killings as well. So that's another point as well. So we're not getting into any conflict or any killing or any arguments or gossiping. Like it's really easy to just get into gossip, right? Like, with your friend, and you're with an auntie or something, and let's say if you're gossiping or you're saying something, it's just so easy and like normal to just fall into it. But when you realize, this is something that you shouldn't be talking about, then you should tell those group of sisters and say, sisters, we shouldn't be talking about this. We shouldn't be gossiping about this person. This isn't right. And, it kind of turns into backbiting as well. So you could be talking about someone else and you don't realize it in your head until you realize, oh, I've just started talking bad about this person and I don't want to get that sin. So it's about, repenting, asking for forgiveness from Allah. So another problem is the lack of support within the Muslim communities nowadays. So in terms of education, health, religious guidance, and finance and care, not everyone has that. And I think in each, mosque or anywhere on websites and stuff, there should be support for that. So when certain Muslims are desperate in need for help, but no other Muslims are taking the trouble to lend a hand. So that's something that we have in Islam. But in Christianity, they have missionaries that would come and take advantage of that situation, and they offer the help financially and spiritually. So there are countries where Muslim families would send their children to Christian schools because they've shown greater concern towards the well-being of the Muslim children. It's seen that, in certain Islamic schools where people go, they might not be receiving that exact care or, the exact guidance that they should compared to Christian schools where people decide to go to take their children to get their education, and it provides a better education and for the future as well. So it leads to some Muslim families forsaking their religion in these sorts of situations, and Muslims themselves who are responsible for this apostasy because they do not look out for one another. So we know a lot of sisters that we're with or friends that we're with that we might not look out for them as much, but when we think about it, when we're around people, we should make sure that we look out for one another, that we're taking care of one another, that we are guiding one another, being around that good environment, there's good people that will make you a good Muslim or continue to make you a good Muslim. This hadith also needs to be looked at in a positive light, so emphasize on the value of the human life and not on the punishments permissible for those three cases that I've mentioned. And Islam has put in place a system which leads to minimizing the occurrences of the three cases. So these are strategies, obligations, which help the Muslim to avoid these acts. So there's a reason to also why we should be avoiding these acts as well. And opponents of Islam look at the hadith in a negative way. So see as a negative way where they accuse Islam of being murderous and barbaric. So there might be someone saying that, Islam allows, murder to happen and this to happen. And they don't know the full truth and they take half of the truth and twist it, you know? And that's the kind of thing that we have to correct them on, but correct them in a nice manner. Say that this doesn't happen, this happens, by correcting them, actually telling them what actually is the truth. And in the matter of Islamic values and human life, it values chastity. So this is ifa tahara, which is a virtue which has lost its value in these contemporary times because of the evil being promoted by opponents. So media, that I said, negative side of technology, the way that Islam is being portrayed nowadays, and where we get negative influence as well, just in general as well. Nowadays where vaping just seen as a normal thing, or where people make jokes about, during Ramadan time, I vape after or something like this, even though it's seen as like a joke just to get views or people just to like it, you are getting, it is haram as well, the way that you're portraying it and the way that other people see it as well. They'll think that, you know, being a Muslim is this, and they'll make things up because of what certain people post. If one person or a few people do it, they'll think that everyone is like that. So we need to show them that that's not true. That's the end of the Hadith 14. I'll get questions afterwards as well. And I'll start on Hadith 22. So I'm just going to read the Arabic and then the translation. عن أبي عبد الله جابر بن عبد الله أنصاري رضي الله عنهما أن رجلا سأل رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم فقال: أرأيت إذا صليت المكتوبة وصمت رمضان وأحللت الحلال وحرمت الحرام ولم أزد على ذلك شيئا أدخل الجنة؟ قال: نعم. رواه مسلم. ومعنى حرمت الحرام حرام جنبته، ومعنى أحللت حلال فعلته معتقد حله. So this is meaning, do you see, if I pray the prescribed prayers and fast during Ramadan, treat the lawful as permissible and treat the forbidden as prohibited, but do nothing more than that, shall I enter paradise? So he, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, answered yes, reported by Muslim. So this is meaning that it's basically trying to say, if I pray the prayers that we're supposed to do. So, back then it was, back the way that it was said that, you know, the Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said that, we need to cut down these prayers. It used to be 50 prayers. And, you're saying that, none of these, no one's going to be doing 50 prayers. This is too much. And then it kept cutting down to, like 30, 25, 20, until it cut down to 5 prayers. And these were the obligatory prayers. And it's also part of the pillar of Islam as well, that we should also be fasting during Ramadan as well. So that's also part of the pillar of Islam. So these are basically obligatory. So Shahada, Salah, Som, Zakah, Hajj, those are the 5 main uh, things that we should be following. That's obligatory that we should follow in Islam. Those are the 5 pillars that we should be following. And prayer is one of the main things because we are worshipping to Allah. You know, if you, let's say if you had a really bad day, a really lousy day, or you know you have exams, you had this, you had that, you know, what's the first thing that you think about? You think about, you know, doing wudu, doing prayer, feeling clean, you're feeling pure, you're going to, you know, you every time you do dua, you want to pray for something, you want this, like you want this car, or you want this job or something, then you pray to Allah. That's between you and Allah. Anything that you've been through, only Allah knows. Any sinful things, your past, your present, what your future is, only Allah knows, and only you're praying to Allah, and that's only between you and Allah what you pray for. Yeah. And by following those prayers and by following, you know, by not doing like certain things, it's trying to say that, you know, let's say, you know, certain things are forbidden, right? That let's say, for example, you're addicted to smoking, for example, yeah, and you're addicted to smoking each day, like you're taking like 5 cigarettes, 10 cigarettes each day, and by doing that, you know, it's seen as haram, and you know, you might start vaping, or you might start doing, you know, drugs, and you start falling into these bad things, right? And you start doing more haram things, but you're keeping prayer as your priority. So even if you're trying to stop, Allah knows you have the intention to try and stop doing those things, and you're going back to prayer each time. That's the difference between us and the non-believers. That we are praying, that we are going back to Allah. That shows that we haven't fully gone away from the path of where we need to be. We're not completely away from the straight path. We're not completely away from it. That we are still there, and we are still praying, and we're still worshipping Allah and going back to Allah, showing that we still need Allah and Allah to guide us. So prayer is the main thing that we need to really follow. So from the background of it, Imam Nawawi said the meaning of treat the forbidden as prohibited is to avoid the forbidden, and the meaning of it to treat the lawful as permissible. So as to perform them believing that they are permissible. So Ibn Rajab gave 2 other interpretations: to treat the lawful as permissible, and to believe that it is permissible, and to treat the forbidden as prohibited. So to believe that it is prohibited and to avoid it, and to treat the lawful as permissible to perform it. So lawful means that it, which is not prohibited, includes wajibs, obligatory deeds, and mustahab, preferable deeds, and mubah, which is allowed. So this hadith emphasizes surrendering the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to accept as permissible what Allah has permitted, and to accept as forbidden what Allah has prohibited. So this also emphasizes Islam itself, because Islam means to fully surrender to the will of Allah and to accept everything that has been commanded by Allah. So in our contemporary times, these arise the issue of Muslims not fully adhering to the Sharia. So, you know, nowadays that, you know, because let's say that you kind of fall away from Islam, you know, if you're in a bad environment, or, you know, you're going through, you know, some mental health issues or certain things that get along in the way that kind of push you away from there, you know, and you're doing these haram things. But there's a reason why, you know, Allah is there with us, and Allah has commanded that we follow these things, and it's to protect us from anything or any bad thing that happens to us. So following, you know, the 5 pillars of Islam, that's obligatory, that we make sure that we actually do that, you know, follow it, make sure that, you know, during Ramadan that we are fasting, you know, that we only believe in Allah, we do not believe in any idols or anything else that's associated with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because that's sinful. Making sure that we pray 5 times a day, that, you know, how it went to 50 and now it's gone to 5 prayers. So that, you know, that's crazy to think that we could have done 50 prayers. But, you know, just to only have 5 prayers, especially when the prayers now are close together, that we're able to do like 3, 4 prayers in the space of like 4 or 5 hours. And, you know, by the time it's like 6, 7 o'clock, then all 5 of your prayers are basically done. And, you know, each prayer doesn't even take that long. You know, only Isha would probably take like 15, 20 minutes, but it shows that, you know, you don't even need to do that much. Allah's only asking you to do the simplest form that you can. And let's say if you are in pain or you have some sort of trouble, then you don't even need to be standing. You can be sat down. Or, you know, if you have some muscle pain or something that you have, that, you know, that you got some injury, then you don't even have to sit and pray. You can just sit on a chair, or just Even when you're traveling as well, or you're going to another city as well, even the prayers shorten down for you as well, so it's easier. So it shows that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala makes it easier for you, not harder, and making sure that we're following the pillars of Islam, zakah as well, charity, even just £1 as well. It doesn't even have to be money as well. It can even just be smiling at someone, or just doing those good deeds as much as you can, and trying to find some good deeds that you can do, helping someone out is also a different form of charity. And Hajj as well, if you're able or you're well, or you have the have the money or even the intention to go as well. That's also the one of the pillars. So in Allah's commandments, if this is because they're new Muslims or they live in areas where there's a lack of knowledge or poor dissemination of information, for example, there's no scholars to advise them. I had, luckily, I kind of think that, I should be so grateful, from growing up being in an environment where I'm around a good Muslim community, where I'm around a mosque, that I was able to learn, Qaida, Quran. I'm currently doing like my Alma degree as well, and I'm glad that I'm able to find that and gain that knowledge. And it kind of goes to show that, if you live close to a mosque, or you live and you're able to access this knowledge, this Islamic knowledge, not a lot of people can do that. And a lot of people find it hard with certain families as well, where they're able to, lack that knowledge. Or, on social media, where I see, a lot of parents are still not accepting, their kid being or their woman being in Islam, and by their parents, they're able to, you know sometimes the kids have to, like, or children have to hide. Some are hiding in like drawers just to pray or something, or they're hiding their prayer mats or putting it underneath the table or something. So it kind of shows how scary that is. And by Muslims that are born in Islam, it goes to show how we really take it for granted, because we don't have to do that. you know Even our parents are reminding us to pray. Even we're going to pray as well. And we can have our prayer mats. We have a good Muslim community, a good family. We can go to mosque, and we can get that knowledge. And it goes to show how much we shouldn't regret that, because we have that knowledge with us. And we should be grateful that we have that knowledge, because a lot of people do not have that. And I've realized, on social media, when you see that, like, how much we should how grateful we should be that we're able to have that support and that community with us, and making sure that we all have that community and continue to have that. So if a Muslim chooses to intentionally ignore or reject the obligations and prohibitions set by Allah without good reasons, then he may be in danger of losing his Islamic entity or identity. So being Muslim is seen as an identity as well. And by ignoring and rejecting, obligations that Allah has told us to set without any good reason, then we are in danger of, being in sin, being sinful. That's basically what it's trying to say, that we're losing our identity, and that we're basically being in danger, in that sense of, going to Jahannam, getting the bad deeds, and, falling into sin. And sometimes we do it without even realizing it. It could be like prayer time in like 10 minutes, but we could say, oh, we're going to do it later. We need to do this first. But it needs to show, what's more important, you praying, or you getting this schoolwork done, for example, or getting this uni work done, or going to work. It's important that you try and always put your prayers first, and always put your religion first before your work, because this life is temporary, and everything that we do will make us financially stable in this life. And when you want to start a family, or you want to do this, or go on these holidays, or have this fun, that's just temporary. But making sure that you put your religion first, you put Islam first, that you're making sure that you're doing your prayers, you're not changing it for something that isn't as important. So we really have to look into that, because sometimes we could end up, saying that we'll do it later, but then end up not doing it, and then we've just missed the prayer. And it's kind of those things that we have to realize, what are we doing? What's more important? Think of it as like a good deed, bad deed scale, on a, which one's more important to you? Or, if it's just both on a scale as well of two different things, what's more important? What's seen as more important to you, to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? What would make him love you more? This hadith also implies that the mustahab or sunnah or preferable deeds are not necessary for one to be able to enter paradise. So what counts, or what matters, is fulfilling the obligatory acts. So we encourage to perform preferable deeds according to our capacity and whenever possible. This is meaning that, let's say if you can't, give charity as much, that you can give during Ramadan, or like in general, you'd be giving like £5, right? And let's say that there's someone else that's there and they're giving, £2,000. And, you know, you could be getting more reward just for giving that £5 compared to someone that gives that £2,000. So I'll explain that in a second. So with that person, because let's say that person was arrogant with the £2,000, right? And they said, "Oh, look how good I am. I'm giving it to charity." And someone just worked hard, and they had £5, and they were said, "Oh, I want to give this £5 because I want to help this charity." It's all about having that intention. So it's a scary thing to think about. Everything that you do in life, make sure that you have the right intention, the reason why you're doing it. Don't do it for other people, because like I said, this life is temporary, and everyone on the day of judgment will be running away from each other. Even your own family, your own parents, your own siblings, they're all going to be running away from each other, and everyone's just going to try and save themselves. So it goes to show how together, how we should be in a Muslim community, but also how we need to be for ourselves as well, how we need to have that self-reflection, and look in the mirror and think, what do I need to do today, and making sure that we have the right intentions. Because it's really scary that you could be doing, giving money to charity, you could be praying, you could be doing those good deeds, you could be helping people out, help your mum with the shopping or something, or helping the old lady cross the road. You've been doing so many things that are good, and having those good deeds, thinking that you're getting those good deeds, but you don't have the right intention for it. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will not accept any of the things that you did because you did not have the right intention. You're doing it for other people. And that's really scary to think about, because then that means all the things that you did your whole life, that was basically a waste, because you didn't have a reason for why you did those good deeds and that intention. So it's really important that everything that we do, we have that intention. And the significance of performing preferable acts is that it will lead us in getting closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And in addition, preferable deeds compensate for our shortcomings in performing the obligatory acts. So making sure that we know the obligatory acts, that we follow them, and that we are basically getting those good deeds, and we're basically making sure that we're able to have that and get those good deeds that we are needing to get, and follow what's obligatory and what we need to be following. Because it's not like, for example, if you do not smile at someone, you're going to go to hell. It's not like that. It's making sure that, even if you are, if you're like a moody person or something like that, that doesn't matter. But making sure that you follow your obligatory acts that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has told you to do, then that's the most important thing. And then inshallah will get you to heaven, so Jannah. The Murabi or scholar should take into account the background or status of the questioner before attending to and answering his or her questions. So different people, different backgrounds, right? They'd come in and require different answers or different approaches in conveying the answers. So you know how we have, different scholars, or that would answer and say different things. Yeah, and I know when I do alima, that when I do hadith as well, that certain scholars will say certain things and that are different compared to other people of what you can and can't do. And this is because a person who comes from a different culture lives in a different environment from the murabis or scholars, so they may not fully understand the scholar's explanation if it cannot be related to his or her situation. So basically, when you ask a scholar something, making sure that it is in your situation, that you're able to understand, so then you know what it is and you can take that into account and learn something about that situation that you're in. And an area related to this issue is the question of Islamic websites on the internet. So I know a lot about this, that we could be following certain websites, and if we don't ask a scholar or someone that's close to us, or someone that has that knowledge of Islam, and we're just searching things on the internet, a lot of things could be made up. So let's say if you're taking the whole knowledge of Islam and everything just by looking on websites and believing it, that that could all be false. Let's say if in a few years time someone saw it and said all this knowledge is fake, so everything that you believed in was fake because of all these websites that people put on the internet that isn't real. And a website can be accessed by people from all over the whole world, so people from different backgrounds and cultures that think differently. And we have to be careful about the information that we put on these websites, and making sure that it's the right information, that we're asking scholars or someone that has, or sheikhs, people that have that knowledge of Islam, just to double check that it is true and it's not just false information that people are believing in. And unfortunately, these Islamic websites are containing controversial issues and conflicting views, where different Muslim groups or sections promote only their school of thought and criticize other groups. So we have different school of thoughts, and it criticizes other people and other group. We have Shia, Sunni, or different types of Muslim as well. So we have those slightly like different beliefs. So in conclusion with that, this hadith shows a significant characteristic of Islam that in a religion based on ease, and this is a minimum requirement to be fulfilled by everyone. So practicing obligations, providing prohibitions, by fulfilling this minimum requirement, a person deserves to enter paradise, and preferable acts are encouraged based on one's capacity and ability. So meaning whatever's your capacity and ability is, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala understands, and from that you will enter paradise just by following the obligatory acts, which isn't that much. And there's new Muslims that live in areas that, yeah, that don't really have them. And it's basically trying to say that we prefer those acts in getting closer to Allah, to making sure that we are following that. And new Muslims should be subjected to conflicting issues or views in Islam. So we get told that there's four different schools of thought, so madhab, and be asked to choose which madhab to follow, and this will only confuse the new Muslims. So you'd be confused of, I thought Islam were just, Muslims were all just one big community. I don't understand, school of thought, things like that. So those are the type of things that you need to clarify and, make sure that you're around people that understand. And it's, no question is a silly question. You can ask anything you want, and you know, at least then you have that knowledge, and in the future you're able to take that into account and teach other people as well once you have that knowledge, or you've learned that knowledge from a course that you did, because it's really important that you know fully, when you're in that religion you want to know everything about it, every single thing, and there's so much to learn about it and so much to actually take in, like how much there is to know. And when you start slowly as new Muslims as well, you're settled and performing the obligatory deeds, and then you're introduced to preferable acts, so things that you don't have to do but you could do, and you should be subjected to conflicting issues or views in Islam that we have as well. So the same thing can be said about the awam, which is a general public. So basically, scholars should not overburden them or bombard them with too many obligations or concepts. So this is also a lesson we can learn from this hadith as well. So the murabi or scholar should observe the background of the questioner as well as the audience in general if there is no questioner. If someone says something to you, then it is okay to question it just to find out, just to check what the truth is. And it's okay to ask those questions, because you don't want to be living in doubt and having doubt about something that you need to actually be, you know, within that religion, and actually ask those questions just to know what is being said. And an area related to this issue is the question of, like I said, Islamic websites, things like that, that we have to make sure, if it's not true, to double check with someone. And that's what we have to make sure that when we are following something, that we are fully having that intention, and having that reason of why we are following it. That is the end of my hadiths for 14 and 22. I will leave like 10-15 minutes of question time if you have anything to ask me. So any questions from the hadith 14 or 22, and I can answer them for the last 10 minutes. You can also type it as well if you're not comfortable in speaking. I'll read what one of you guys has put. Yeah. So zina does not protect the woman in most cases, but it can lead to sexual disease and mental health issues, as well as children who most likely be neglected. Yes, that's true. So, there's a reason why zina is kept as a sin, right? It's the biggest sin. And it's, Allah's basically protecting us, because, by doing that, you don't know where that other person, has been. And you can get so many diseases, and so many things can come of that. And, even, if you end up getting pregnant as well, you have that illegitimate children, and, their parents aren't married, you don't have a financial, stable family, compared to someone that is married in the halal way, and you're having children in the halal way. That's why Allah has kept it that way, because there's certain people where their mum and dad end up being divorced, or they end up having a child, or it's not the best, where there's one or two kids that are basically away from their parents because they both don't love each other, or they're both basically away from each other because of them not liking each other, or them just messing around and having a baby like by accident. So it goes to show how bad like zina can also lead to, as well as it what it is being the biggest sin. There's so many things that can come into it, like health issues and diseases. Yeah. Also, another one as well, when you struggle with missing prayers. Yeah, so when you struggle with missing prayers or delaying them, you have to think about who is in control of the time and make time for the one who created it. Yeah. So making sure that, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given you that time to pray. And we don't know how long we've got in this life, right? We could just be gone like next year, next month, tomorrow, in like an hour. We don't know what's going to happen. So we thank Allah for, the good health that we are given and the blessings that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us. And we do not really think about it, take it into account. It's kind of like just breathing as well. Like we just think breathing is just a normal thing, or talking is a normal thing. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us that. And, there's some people that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given where they do not have that. And it goes to show how sometimes we're not as grateful as we should be, and that we should be really grateful for Allah giving us that good health and that good iman. Yeah, making sure that we avoid different websites as well that contains false information. Yeah, so it's very hard to contact scholars as well, but I'd say that if there is like certain you know, people at the mosque, if you're local to a mosque, I'm not sure, that you can speak to them, and, you can find out, you can ask questions. It's just something that you can speak to, a sheikh about, or if you're confused about something, then it is okay to ask, because it is really hard to find any online or any, actual legitimate one, because there are some fake scholars or certain people that make things up. So you don't want to look into that. So making sure that it's the actual one. If anyone has any questions. You can just type on the chat if there's any questions. Well, I hope both these hadiths that you've taken into account, you've learned a lot from these hadiths. And, by learning the background, or even learning this knowledge, even if you already knew about these hadiths, it's good that you actually, refresh your memory. I know whenever, if someone's like saying that you shouldn't be doing this or shouldn't be doing that, or you're hearing an Islamic reminder or something, you kind of think, oh, I've heard this so many times. But it's always good to refresh your memory and always relearning that, because you always see it in a different way as well. And you can be looking at it in a different angle and the way that you take it when you're learning something. So even if you already know it, it's good to refresh your memory.
Assalamu alaikum, Sister Mariam. Jazakumullah khair for they are both very powerful reminders that you have picked, and they are very thought-provoking as well. Especially the one that we've just done, where one of the Arab Bedouin asked the Prophet ﷺ if that he is only doing the obligatory acts, he hasn't done any voluntary acts. Would it be enough for him to go to Jannah? And he, Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, said yes. Um, so that makes me think that if the obligatory acts are enough for us to go to Jannah, then one can imagine how much damage is done by being careless in with them, or neglect them. So it comes to my mind how much people give priority to voluntary acts and carelessly leave the um, obligatory acts. For example, the culture that I've come from, people take great effort going to the Jummah Salah, but probably they are not steadfast in doing the rest of the salahs, specifically the difficult ones, the Fajr ones. So how can one imagine that his Jummah Salah, which is not an obligation, it is not an obligation, but highly, highly, highly recommended. So if how can his Jummah Salah is accepted when he has not done the basic obligatory acts? So this is quite scary for one to think. Um, I don't know what your thoughts are on that. And also it also makes me think that the obligatory acts, however, the obligatory acts need to be so high and so perfect, then it was Allah's mercy that through his Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he then added voluntary acts for us. So if we cannot achieve the quality, we then go for the quantity. Do you understand what I'm saying? I hope I'm making
Yes.
myself understand that it's so. So although one can, inshallah, enter Jannah by doing just the obligatory acts, but it does scare me because I know that my obligatory acts are not that high level. The salah, the mandatory units of salah that I'm reading, my mind is drifting here, there, everywhere. I'm trying my best to concentrate, but then and in other things as well. So then I'm desperately doing the voluntary acts. I'm doing more and more units, hopefully, so that at the end, when my scale is being weighed or measured, um, if my voluntary acts are not good enough or not enough, then if my mandatory acts are not good enough or not enough, then my voluntary acts are included. So this is how I see it. Jazakumullah
Yeah.
khair.
Yeah, I see what you mean in that as well. So it's really about the quality that the quality that we actually do, even if it's just a little bit, even though we could have the intention, of doing it, even though we could be praying, for example, like you said, or you could get distracted, or during Ramadan you could be thinking, when we're praying the Maghrib prayer in during Salah, that we have certain things in our head that we're thinking, we're going to eat this food after or something. That's also another example as well. And a way to kind of like get away from thoughts that we have during prayer and only think about reading is just to when you're reading or when the imam is reading, that you really take into account all those all everything that he's reading, and just really carefully think about what he's reading during that time, because we do get distracted and things do happen. Obviously, none of us are perfect, that we might not be following all the obligatory deeds, but we are trying to. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala may Allah make it easier for us as well. That there are certain
Um,
things that we are going to find really, really hard, and especially in this life as well. And Allah tries his best to make it easier for us, and that we should think about how what we can do to make it easy for all of us. That's why it's really good when we're around a Muslim community, that we're all there together. And if we're praying together, we have struggles, that's something that you can share with your Muslim friends. And it's really important that we have that. And also to have a group reflection as well. I think a group reflection is really good, that all of you guys can reflect on, stuff that you need to work on. You could be saying that, I need to do these obligatory acts, but even though I'm doing the voluntary acts, that Allah is still putting those as good deeds as well, and you're trying and you have the intention of doing more. And even if we do get distracted and things happen along the way, or your mind just wanders off sometimes, you know then those are the kind of things that we have to reflect on. How can we make sure that doesn't happen? And that's why it's really important. Group reflection and self-reflection, I think, are really important things that we have to look in. So whenever we look at something, for example, let's say that we find it really hard to get up for Fajr, right, at 4 a.m. in the morning. I know I find it really hard to get up in the morning at times. And we have to think about, what can we do to fix that. For example, making sure that we have like 10 alarms on, or making sure that you know someone's waking us up, or we have someone that's waking us up. You have your sisters, you have your brothers, anyone that's waking you up, making sure that we have that. And kind of think about those kind of things that we kind of like go back. And then as soon as you have that and you're praying Fajr every day, then that's something that you can tick off. You can be like, yes, I'm doing that. But if you go back into it, just try and go back into praying again, go back into waking up for Fajr again. Think about, oh, I'm falling back down. How do I get back to the top again? Like, I'm down the stairs, but how do I get to the top of the stairs? What can I do? And there are some hurdles and things that we have along the way, but with other people, but by having that group reflection, we can do it all together, or by doing it by even doing it by yourself as well. That's something that you need to work on yourself. Then you can even have a sheet or a certain goals that you need to that you want to complete as a Muslim woman. Certain things that you need to do. I can do this now, but what can I do? For example, give charity each month. That could be something. Give £2 each month. That's something that you want to do, that you want to have intention for, that you want to do this for, like why you're doing this. Making sure that you have that right intention of why you're doing it. Or you could have something else. Being kinder to my family, or being more helpful to my family. That could be something that could be on your list as well, that you can write down. So that's something that you can work on by yourself, to make sure that you have that best character, the best intentions. That is the best thing that you can do before anything, making sure that you have the right intentions and the reason why you're doing it.
MashaAllah, that's very true. Do you want to read the chat room as well? Because some of the sisters are
Yeah.
writing and they're really good comments that the sisters are writing. If you can read it for us.
Yes. So Dania said that we can, where possible, adjust our routine to meet the obligations of Salah, go to bed early after Isha in winter, and wake up Fajr earlier for the Hajj. Yeah, that's good, because when we get really tired, especially if you have kids, or like they go to university or school anywhere, that making when you go to sleep, because especially when all the prayers are together now in the winter time, that you can be praying Isha at 6 o'clock, right? And after praying Isha, you can pray praying that at 6, 7 o'clock, and then you go to sleep, and then you can literally go to sleep at like 8, 9 o'clock, and then you still have a few hours. You still have like a good 7, 8 hours to sleep, and then you wake up again, and you can pray Fajr at 6 o'clock. So, it kind of goes with the time, even though you feel like you're not getting enough sleep, then, after praying, then what's the need to stay up that late? You can do your work straight after praying, and then you can just, have that sleep before waking up. Because why are you not waking up for Fajr? Because you didn't get enough sleep, or you're not a morning person. But what can you do? You can get more sleep. So it's kind of the way that we look at it, and you're not making up certain excuses of why you can't do it. Someone else said that our daily routine is work, children, studying, and should revolve around prayer times, not the other way around. Yes. So we kind of think about, what are we prioritizing more? What's more important? Like I said before, like on a scale, is it work? Your children are important too, like your work, your children, your studying, but it's not as important as praying. Yeah. Making sure that we revolve around our prayer times. So for example, when your children are at school, you can still do your prayer times. When you can do Zuhr and Asr before you collect them, if school ends at like 3, 4 o'clock for them, and then you collect them after. And then as soon as you collect your kids, you can pray Maghrib, then you can pray Isha like an hour, 2 hours later. So, kind of go around. You can even have an alarm as well for each time that you wake up. For example, what time are you going to wake up for Fajr, Zuhr, Asr, Maghrib, Isha? Like, what time are you going to wake up for them? Having, on your notes page, you can have certain times, and then you get used to praying at those specific times, and then you know that you will not miss your prayer. Just think of it as you're talking to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala 5 times a day. As you're worshipping Allah, you're talking to Him. Have you done it? Have you done all 5 out of 5, or have you done 2 out of 5? If you've done 2 out of 5, then what can you do to make it 5 out of 5? Or, if you're struggling to pray every day, then what can you do to make sure that you pray all 5 prayers? Yeah, important point about the quality of acts, yeah. And yeah, voluntary acts helping, yeah, so making sure if we have certain shortcomings that we're helping other people as well. We strive for both, yeah, making sure that we prioritize what's actually important. What if I was in a house fire at the same time of Fajr? If I'd be up in an instant, why not wake up to avoid the fire of hell? I'd be up in an instant, so why not wake up? Yeah, so that's what I mean. So that's a really good example. So let's say if there was a really, really big fire, there was a really big fire, obviously you'd get out of that fire. So, in the day of judgment, why would we not want to pray to avoid the hellfire as well? So that's a really good point that you made there. So making sure that, that, you know, we're not thinking about, we're in a luxurious like house right now. We have everything. Our family gives us everything and provides us with everything. But, we would wake up if there was something bad happening, or there was a like you said, like a fire happening. So why we not wake up when there's you know we think about what's going to happen, like if we're going to go to Jahannam by not praying, by not following and praying. So we really take that into account as well. Yeah, using salah time as mindfulness, connecting with Allah. So making sure that you change your mindset, make sure that you're not distracted. Don't see it as like a burden. That's really good. So you do not see it as a burden, kind of think, oh, I need to go pray Zuhr, no, Asr. Don't think of it as something that your parents are like forcing you to do. Do it something as something that you enjoy. Think of it as, you're going to do wudu, you're going to do salah, like you're going to, worship in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That is something that we need to think about. And as soon as you prayed as well, you have a really, really calm mind as well. Your whole body's relaxed, and you have to change your mindset and the way that you see things, especially with salah as well. So you could, like, you can, if you're a parent, you have certain kids that might think, oh, I have to go pray salah, I don't want to pray salah. Like, you have to make sure that they change their mindset and show that you should have that good positive mindset. And it's also a growth mindset as well, where you have to be mindful of, when you're praying salah, you're connecting with Allah, and that is, we're worshipping Allah, we're standing in front of Allah, and you could be, you're basically saying that you can't be bothered. That's like on the day of judgment as well, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is asking those questions like, do you not believe, or do you not this, or that's something that we need to think about in during salah time. What are we actually thinking about? So salah time is mindful, and we are connecting to Allah, and change your mindset and do not think of it as something that is a burden, something that you are forced to do by your parents. That is something that you are willing to do. So when your parents are making you, go do salah, making children go do salah, it's because they care about you and they want to make sure that you are praying. So that's something that you can teach your kids in the future as well, and it's obligatory from Allah.
Jazakumullah khair so much, Sister Mariam, for these two great reminders, and all the sisters who've been actively contributing and giving their own thoughts. That makes such a big difference. Our time is up. Time flies when we are together and learning something good. Alhamdulillah. Next week will be our last session. Um, so please, sisters, do join us next week. Inshallah, I myself will be doing it. And inshallah, then I will let you guys know what we are doing in January as well. And we're going to have a winter break after next week, inshallah. So for now, we would say salam alaikum and jazakumullah khair. And inshallah, meet you all next week. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته
Wa alaikum salam.